All
Shall
right.
I?
I
I'll
believe we are live, if I am correct. Um,
not yet. Says starting soon.
okay.
Yes.
Yay. All righty. Hello, everyone. We are live. Hey,
Hi everyone. Sorry. It it is always like this. We always try our best and then technology has surprises for us.
I think next time, Olga, we just need to try like rather than each time we keep saying like 1 minute before, 2 minutes before. I think now we just need to like say, okay, 5 minutes before.
Yes.
And
And
then
just
we
stay on and chat to people before we start. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Like, hey, everyone, we're early. Welcome. Join us. It's great to have you here, kind of thing. So yes, if you're all getting settled in, welcome. This is a live monthly series that Olga and I do. Olga and I are both career coaches, and I'll let Olga introduce herself in a minute. But I just want to tell you really quickly, She Means Business is a series that we do monthly here on LinkedIn Live, just to talk about specifically kind of like workplace topics and women in the workplace, especially. So today we're talking about the power of networking. So I'm Susan, I'm a career coach, and I mainly focus on helping people that are interested in doing a massive career change. And I'll throw it over to Olga to introduce herself as well.
Yes, hi, hi there, everyone. I am a recovering group head of corporate communications, and at the moment, I'm a career coach, and I work with people contemplating the serious question of midlife, and I'm helping corporate professionals to understand what's next for them. I really love doing this, and I thought I would also introduce myself by means of telling you more about what kind of networker I am. And it
Hmm.
wasn't until I read the book by Malcolm Gladwell, The Tipping Point, that I realized there's a name for us. So I'm a connector, which means I have a big active network and I happily connect people with one another. It doesn't mean, however, that I myself knew or know until today how to use my network for my best benefits, but I guess we'll be talking more about it and I'll be sharing what I learned and
I'm
how to use
I'm
the network.
I'm interested. Do you remember all the different ones that Malcolm Gladwell says, like of the different types?
No, but I remember mine.
Of course, but we all do this, right? Like we remember
Yeah.
what ours are, and then we're like, oh yeah, that's a good question. This is
Yeah.
something I guess
We'll
Google
Google
for
it after
Google for
today.
another like thing.
Yeah.
And of course, I instantly am curious, so I will do that. But while I'm like looking at the same time, I just want to kind of let you know is the what we're kind of going to cover today about networking. I know for some people, networking is kind of a intimidating word because you maybe have never done it before, you don't feel comfortable doing it. So we really wanted to break down why networking is important because sometimes people already are not quite sure it's really valuable. So we wanted to kind of explain how it can help you in your career. Then we want to talk about how to do networking, kind of break down misconceptions about it, make it more accessible, and explaining that there is a way to network for everyone. There's not just one type or one style. So we'll kind of get into all of this today. Olga and I, of course, we love to chat. We'll be chatting back and forth, but we really, really want to be here and useful for you guys. So we love for you to interact. So please feel free to use the chat, add comments here, and let us know what you're thinking as we go through things. Is
And
there something in particular that you want to discuss?
yeah, and just to piggyback on that, I just typed our first question into the chat. And while we are introducing the topic, why don't we all exchange the biggest challenges. What do you find the most challenging in networking? If you can type up your answers, that will be great. And
Mm,
yeah,
I
and I
think,
guess we're going to cover the space for now to share our views on what we believe networking is and why it is important.
by the way, I looked up Malcolm Gladwell's types of networkers.
Yeah.
You have connectors, mavericks, and salesman. And it says that connectors have a large number of weak ties, providing a connector access to a varied set of social groups. So you touch a lot of different points being a connector. It says mavericks are information specialists, so that they are
Yeah, they always know what prices are in every supermarket compared to the other one. That's an exaggeration, yes.
yeah. And then as well, then you have the salesman, and they are the name as implied, the skilled promoters. So they're really good at really, yeah, kind of doing the sales pitch, promoting something. So
Yep. I need more of that. I'll be
yeah.
one of them when I grow up. Yes.
Yeah, it's like something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Working towards something, a skill that we want to and hope to develop. I think there's always room for improvement when it comes to growing ourselves.
And I can see the answers are coming in. That's great. Oh, come on, Andre, your biggest challenges, people. I could have guessed it. Yes. And and then starting is difficult if I focus on networking. We're going to be talking about this. Talking to strangers from Maria to start a conversation. We will be talking about we'll be giving tips as we go how to do that. Finding the relevant people to network with from Xenia. Yes, we'll talk about this as well. For me, networking feels quite false. Okay, we'll talk about it. And what should be the robust systemic approach as opposed to random encounters? Funny you should mention this.
Mm-hmm.
But that's exactly what we wanted to start with. It's
Yeah.
what's a robust networking event? What are your views, Susan?
Um, yeah, I think that with networking, of course, there's different types of networking, and you don't have to start with something that feels really big and overwhelming. Um, and I think, yeah, we'll get into this, of course, I think in more detail, and we'll also tell you about our different types of favorite networking. Um, but I love that, yeah, some of these things in the chat, I definitely have felt some of these before. It feels false. It's you don't know how to start. I love the answer people, because that's often how I feel now. I'm an introvert. I definitely do love my solitude. So sometimes I'm like, oh, I can't be bothered with people today. Um, so I love I definitely resonate with that. But let's kind of talk about first, I always like to start with the why, because I think it's hard to do something when you're not quite sure why you're doing it and really like doesn't matter in the big grand scheme of things. And so I found that why it matters is because it can really change where you go in your career. One, if we look at something called the hidden job market, I don't know if everyone's heard this term before, is a lot of jobs before they're even posted online, they are just simply shared around in someone's network. People are looking just to see if they know someone or someone they know knows someone that's relevant for the role that their team is going to be opening up. The reason why a lot of that has to do with trust, because you somewhat feel, that you know that person when you're interviewing them, because they came recommended by someone. So with the hidden job market, you access a lot of things. And how do you access things on the hidden job market? Networking. I know that this is something one that's important. A lot of things as well is, especially if you're a woman, the higher you go in an organization, the higher you go role wise, the less women there are at the top. You will, you, I think it's really great to have male allies in the workplace, and it's really great to network with those people. We know for a fact women usually don't promote themselves as well in promotional in roles as their male counterparts. They aren't they're often attribute their success to a team effort rather than their success. And so it's really great to network so you have an ally that can recommend you for going even higher and higher, and knowing also when things are available as well. I feel like that was a monologue. What do you think on all of that, Olga? Like, do you have the same views as me when it comes to like why networking for you? Like, why networking?
Well, networking is important, and believe it or not, yesterday I was in a very interesting networking conversation, and there was a phrase given to me that I still with pride, and I'm going to share it with you. So the person said that networking is like digging a well before you're thirsty.
Mm,
So digging a well before you're thirsty, and it resonated with me, and it's so true for my clients as well, because what happens in midlife, we are all this wonderful, we used to be wonderful young talents, and the jobs were flying into our faces, and that was great. And we used to just throw our resume at a recruiter, and they would say, how wonderful, and here's a job interview. Something happens in the midlife, and the jobs are not there. You write all these applications on LinkedIn, and no one even acknowledges, why you didn't go through, and so on.
mm,
So that's where networking kicks in, and that's where you start uh getting the benefits from it. But if you start building it, then that's a bit too late. It's never too late, but it's a bit too late to build your network when you are in great need, because networking is not a transactional one-time thing. It's
mhm.
about relationship, and relationships take time to build. And
Yeah.
and I think that's very important.
What you're saying, it really sounds like it's a long-term strategy because obviously if you're digging a well before you're thirsty, it's thinking ahead and saying, okay, I'm not thirsty yet, but I probably will be in the future. And it's going ahead and working towards something that you don't need actually in this moment, but later on will be very fruitful.
Yes. And also, in a way, you actually don't know when you're going to be thirsty, but you need to believe you will be,
Mm-hmm.
in a way. And it might be hard now, but then you're going to be nurturing your network, and that's why I think it's important. Uh,
Mm.
yeah, but shall we jump into a couple of examples? Do you have a good example for us
Of what? Of networking
of
in general?
networking, how it worked for you or didn't work for you?
Yeah, I mean, oof, I have plenty of examples. I think for me, a lot of the jobs that I've gotten, actually, more jobs that I've gotten than not have come through networking rather than just applying only with an application. Some of them were networking, and of course, as a formality, I've submitted an application, but it was definitely through networking that I got called into an interview and that I was looked at differently. Um, it really was the majority of my jobs, if I'm thinking about it, versus
That's impressive.
yeah, versus just applications. And that's why I'm always telling clients networking really can make a big difference in where you go.
Hmm. And
Um,
have you ever failed in networking? What was like the biggest blunder you had?
oh yeah. Oh yes, definitely. For sure. I think this is actually great to focus on. I'm glad you mentioned this. Because I think it shows that we also are, we're coaches. Of course, we know these things now, the importance of networking, but it wasn't always so. So when I first started trying to network, it's because someone told me, oh, you need to network. It's important. So I just said, okay, great. So I signed up. I was working in marketing at the time. I signed up. I went to an industry event for a marketing association. It was a mixer event to meet other marketers. And I just went up to people and said, oh, hi, I'm Susan. What's your name? Where do you work? Um, and then we start talking. And I said, oh, yeah, I'm actually like looking for a job right now. Is your company hiring? This was within like the first
Boom into the face. Yes.
minute and a half of the conversation with the person. Is your company hiring? And now that I look back, I cringe because if you're job searching now, you will feel like, yeah, well, I am looking for a job. But when you are employed, it's very standoffish that someone says, hey, is your company hiring? Because you're asking someone for a favor and that person doesn't know you. And so that person is kind of like, I don't know if they're hiring or I think they're hiring. You can go online, but that person's not going to recommend you when they've only talked to you for a minute and 30 seconds. So that's why I think I didn't really realize. I thought I was trying to network because someone told me without realizing I was going about it transactionally and
Yeah.
not in,
Not built in the relationship.
yeah. And it goes back to what you were saying earlier. It is a more long-term strategy. It is thinking about the well and digging for the well before you need it. So it's about having those relationships in place that you can call upon when you are job searching or you're up to change because you want a promotion. There's different reasons why someone would network, and it's not even just in sense of changing a job or moving up the ladder. It could also be being included on certain projects within your field. So networking can lead to a lot of positive results. But I definitely think that the main thing is looking at when you do networking, it cannot be transactional because transactional focuses on what do I get from this person? What do I get out of it? Um, and you're only interacting with someone that one time. You're not following up. You're not building that relationship. And and that's when people think networking is authentic because they think this is what networking is. But if you switch and you do a different approach, it will not feel like inauthentic. It will not feel fake. It will start to feel genuine because you're focused actually on building relationship with that person. Um,
It just reminds me, Susan, about one big lesson that I got into networking and how to make it more authentic. And I hope by sharing this, some of the people online are going to get a good hint on how to start. So about 15 years ago, when I was 2 years in London, oh, maybe 13, doesn't matter. When I got my first redundancy and I found myself in London with no network, because I just came and I wasn't actually concentrating on building the external network.
because you came for work to London, so then you were there.
Exactly. I had a huge network internally, which was great, but I wasn't sort of future-proofing myself, didn't have the external network. So I found it very difficult to even write to the headhunters, and they would never reply. And then there's one headhunter, she talked to me and we built a good rapport. And I say, well, what's going on? What am I not doing right?
Mm,
And she told me, well, look, when you ask the question, do you have a job for me? The only answer most of the time you're going to get, no, I don't have a job for you. And that makes anyone saying no uncomfortable.
mm,
So by starting the relationship, you're putting them into an uncomfortable position. What your aim is in building the relationship is to make the person comfortable and to make the person feel comfortable, happy, and even important. And I'm looking at this and thinking, but I need a job. How do I make them feel important?
yeah, exactly.
Tell
Because
me.
you're like, I'm in desperate mode right now.
Yeah. And then she says, well, next time when you write to another headhunter,
Hmm.
start with, I'm new in the market. Would you care spend 15 minutes with me over a coffee to help me orient in the market and give me advice? Boom. You're still getting their attention. You are offering them to feel important because then they're going to be telling you about the market because they're the experts. So when you leave them, you've achieved many goals. You made them feel important, so they have a positive sort of imprint about you. You're going up their mental list, memory list of people who, when the next role comes up, they're going to remember. It's a genuine feel-good attitude. You didn't put them into an uncomfortable situation to say no to you, even though headhunters say that a lot, but still.
Mm-hmm.
So you built a relationship with them. And since then, I was like, oh my God, it's so simple. Guess what? The next week, I wrote about 10 messages to headhunters. I think 8 replied, and I had those coffees and I had conversations and so on. So it's more about not putting people into the uncomfortable position by
Mm-hmm.
cornering them and saying, do you have a job? And
Yeah.
now I use this principle all the time. When I activate my network, next time I'm out of job and something, I reach out to my people and I say, look, we haven't caught up for a while. I'm back actively looking in the market. Would you mind spending some time with me to tell you how, for example, wherever I work, like how comms are treated in your organization? You really never know what's going to come out of this conversation. You're still picking up your network, you're activating. And a great example is I once had a conversation like this, and the person came back to me a week later saying, look, I've just seen this in my feed, LinkedIn feed. Someone is looking for a consultant. I
Mm.
wouldn't have seen that, right?
Because they knew like you reactivated your network, you let them know you were open to opportunities. They see something and then they think, oh, I should tell Olga about this.
Yes. Rather than, oh, here she is again looking for a job.
Mhm.
Different attitude and different sort of keeping up the relationship. But I think what also is important in this whole relationship building, it's four steps. And it is, you obviously thank people when you meet with them, but then sort of to make the long-lasting relationship, you promise to them, if they've given you some piece of advice, you promise to them to come back to them to let them know how it's going.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
then
because most people do genuinely, if they have a nice conversation with you, they want an update. They want to know what's going on.
yeah, and then when the conversation is over, 2 days later, your brain is still processing it. You came up with new ideas. Like for example, this well metaphor that I shared with you.
Hmm.
I picked it up yesterday. I am so going to make sure I'm going to write a thank you note tomorrow to that person to say, look, you made me think, that metaphor stuck with me. Thank you so much again. So that's more activation. And
And you
then,
make the person feel good. Always when you
yeah,
compliment someone, the person feels
that's the
great
whole
that you,
bit with the about the relationship,
yeah.
right? And then almost diarize it, put it into your diary to catch up with them in half a year, for example, and think, has anything changed since they've given you this advice or provided you this more context? Because, for example, this person opened his network to me and gave me 3 more people to talk to. So he would want to know how this worked because it's activating network for him as well. I would mention him to those people and so on. So I don't know. I does this sound sort of false to you or fake, Susan?
No, and I really like this because I mean, I think if you're doing it always with good intentions as well, you are, it doesn't feel fake. If you're going in because you're genuinely curious about talking with this person, you're genuinely curious about the insights they can provide you. Um, and I think that I think too, if you're not interested in reaching out to someone, don't for the sake of networking. You don't have to. There's so many people in the world. You can reach out to another headhunter. You can reach out to another person in your industry to get insights or to learn more about how they've made it in the industry or how they've gotten to where they've gotten. You don't need to talk to this one person. that you're just not motivated to talk to, or that doesn't come across as so interesting.
Yeah.
So I think that I love like how you've said it, because it is about building a relationship.
Mhm. I'm looking at the time, Susan, and I'm thinking, shall we do like a blitz of different types of networking and
Yes.
hints and tips, how to approach them? And maybe while we're doing this, I'm gonna ask everyone online to share with us what's your favorite type of networking. What did you find that works for you?
And it's okay if you don't have a favorite
Yes,
yet.
yes.
We
If
hope to introduce some ways that you say, oh, this maybe appeals more to me.
that's it. If you're still struggling with talking to people, maybe we'll give you some hints how to start a conversation.
Yes.
Sure.
So start us off, Olga.
Right. So I think I mentioned on this. So the two types, external, internal networking.
Yeah.
Because as I said, as I found myself here in the UK without external network, because I was working in a large multinational company. Most of my LinkedIn contacts it was a wide network in all sorts of countries, all in one company. The moment you leave the company, this is a worthless network. So I think you need to do both. And my internal network worked really well for me because I managed to work in 3 different countries and being promoted internationally through my internal network. And I worked hard on building it. Whereas I failed to build external. On the hindsight, that well had to be dug even earlier. So I was catching up. So those are the two. And yeah, shall we look into sort of how do you build internal networks? It's simple, asking people to go out for a coffee, being curious about what they do. And especially if you're in the support functions, sort of go and ask the product functions. So can you talk me through, the product, or the other way around? Go to the support function and say, well, how does it really work? How does like how do you come up with building bonuses and compensation approaches and so on? You are genuinely interested, and you never know when that's going to play out for you. As I said, one of my biggest promotions in a large international company was when my name was mentioned in a senior leadership talent discussion meeting. There were 3 people who knew me. They just knew me, and they said, "Oh yeah, yeah, we know Olga. She's good."
So
They
if
knew me.
they all could jump on the bandwagon, like when one person mentioned you, they all jumped on the bandwagon to say, "Oh yeah, we've worked with Olga before," or "We've always had a good rapport with
Conversation.
Olga."
Yeah. So that's the internal, and
That's
then
cool. That's great.
obviously external is industry events, professional events, female networks that are very popular at the moment. But don't disregard your friends and family parties. You meet
Mm,
quite a lot of interesting people in there. I meet people. I have a friend who goes on hiking around London, and professionals go there. That's how he meets people. I talk to everyone when I hike. I do talk to everyone.
mm.
When you're just sitting down for a rest and someone else is sitting next to you, I made wonderful connections there. But I do appreciate I love people.
I
So
think
give me
that's
people
actually
and I'll
good.
talk to them. Yeah.
But I think that's actually good to mention, because people tend to think networking, it's professional. So it's very structured. So you go to like an industry event, you go to conferences, or you network with people within your company. But it is as simple as integrating networking into your hobbies. If you're going hiking, maybe you're going hiking with hobbyists that also hike, and you can network within those. Oh, what do you do? Like what exactly does your role encompass? I've never heard of this before. Um, you never know. I always tell people it's not about connecting with people uniquely in your industry. So whether you're in designs or comms or startups, you don't need to know everyone within those fields, because you never know who you meet that is a connection of someone very relevant to your industry.
Yeah.
So maybe the person that, using your example of hiking, Olga, maybe the person that you meet on a hike is not in your field, but maybe their partner is.
Mhm.
And you don't ever know who someone else can introduce you to. So I
Yeah,
think, yeah, hobby groups and friend and family parties are quite interesting because
yeah.
yeah, you can learn
And
about.
here's a hint for you for external networking, maybe, how not to be intimidated by this. And I would what I used to do, and trust me, I'm an extrovert, but I go up and down with my confidence in large events networking. I used to go with a friend. And we would walk in and we would sort of support each other. We meet people and then it's like, oh, can you come over? I'll introduce you to Olga, here's this and this. So it's like double the people you meet. On
Mm-hmm.
bad days, we would walk in and we would say, okay, we're making a pinky promise. We're gonna make 3 contacts and leave. And what happens while you're making the 3 contacts, your appetite starts sort of building up and you stay, or indeed you make 3 contacts and you leave because it's not your day and it's okay. Networking when you come in and need to meet everyone can be exhausting. And I
Yeah,
know
it's
there's one
overwhelming, I
person,
think.
yeah, I know there's one person online who shared her story with me, how she was trying to meet everyone and how exhausted she felt afterwards. So it's okay if you don't meet everyone.
Yeah.
It's fine as long as you made an effort to meet someone else. But Susan, I know you do a lot of online networking.
Yes, yes, I do.
How does this
So
work?
yeah, because I think it goes back to, I think, being an introvert. So I love online networking because I can do it at the comfort of my own home. And I think you're more flexible with time as well because you can meet people kind of when they're available. Um, and even distances no longer matter. You
Mhm.
can have a conversation with someone in another part of the world, even. So I love to network online. You can do this a lot of different ways. You can do this with video chats. So you kind of schedule a video chat with someone that you're interested in learning more about. You can also do this by different professional groups. So you think about different kind of professional groups that are already established in your industry. A lot of times, if you're a member, they have a directory that you can access of other members and be put in touch with them, have their email address and whatnot. LinkedIn is great because it's essentially an online directory of what people do. So you have that at your fingertips. Um, and in webinars like ours. And it's not just about maybe interacting with us as the presenters because we're here, but it's also looking to see who is also showing up because maybe they're interested in the same topic in networking and want to network as well. And just looking to see, oh, who's there and interacting as well in the chat. Maybe there's someone that's going to be receptive to me reaching out to them. And you can do
So,
this in any webinar.
so here's a challenge to you all. Well, there's 6 participants. Why don't you look up who you want to reach out to and have a uh, conversation with? But then, Susan, here's the question to you. How do I reach out? Um, it's kind of awkward to say, hi, can we talk? Like, what's your best advice? How do you reach out to people for a conversation
Yeah,
online?
I think it's just about going back to being authentic. You can simply reach out and mention how you've seen them. So in this case, if you were to reach out to someone, you would say, "Hey, I saw you also were commenting on the live event from Susan and Olga. Um, so I'm interested, like, what made you decide to attend this event on networking?" You can also, if you're doing it when it's outside of a webinar and it's just in general online, you can just reach out to someone. And again, always going back to compliments. Everyone loves to hear compliments. You can always mention to someone, um, hey, I really found your post about XYZ very interesting because blah, blah, blah. And then you have the starter, you're complimenting them and maybe agreeing with what they've written. And that's already an opener there. I think that those are some that I can think of off the top of my head. Do you have some that you want to add, Olga?
Yeah, I think reaching out and actually mentioning something from the person's profile or something that makes them feel important, or that you've done the homework and you studied their
Mm,
profile and there's a reason you're reaching out to them, is great. But also I want to jump into the conversation itself. Uh, it's networking is hard work. And some people have it naturally, some don't, but it's a skill that you can develop.
yeah.
And one of the approaches to user networking is appreciative inquiry, and you're very welcome to Google it in the free time. But it's continue asking questions and continue being genuinely interested in the person. And one other technique comes to mind, and this book has been quoted too many times recently. The book written by an FBI chief negotiator. What was his name? Hang on, I even wrote it down. Chris Voss.
Mm,
And the book was Never Split the Difference. And he shared there the technique they used in hostage negotiations, and it's called mirroring. So if you feel awkward, and especially in one-on-one, you go, for example, I said recently, 15 years ago, I found myself out of the job. And Susan goes, "Oh, out of the job." So you always get the last thing or the last word that the person said and turn it into the question. And then I go, "Because I didn't have an external network." And Susan goes, "Oh yeah, external network is very difficult to build, isn't it?
mm.
Because you concentrate on internal network." And I feel like I already had a question, but she didn't ask the question. She repeated what I already said, and the conversation flows. So my encouragement to all of you is try to play around with this. Maybe try with your kids. See how it goes when they come
Thank you.
after school. But when they don't talk to us, teenagers, those of you who have teenagers probably can associate with me. Grab the last word in their sentence and ask a question, or just reframe and repeat, and you would be surprised how they will start talking. So it's the same with, once you have people online, you are interested, you're genuine, they are engaged because you're listening to them.
They
Here
feel
you
heard, I
go.
think, when you
Yes.
repeat back the last words they said, like because you've picked up on it, you've pulled it out, and you're kind of mentioning a follow-up thing to it, either a question or a follow-up statement to keep the conversation going.
Yes. And
Mm,
and that's what it is. And I think what we miss, and I talked about sort of being genuine, thanking people, promising to come back, then coming back. But also don't forget that you have things to offer. There's nothing wrong.
yeah.
There's nothing wrong in the conversation to ask, how can I help you? Again, that conversation that I keep quoting from yesterday, I was talking to an absolutely master networker with a humongous network, and he's known for sharing his contacts and so on. But I did ask in the end, how can I help you? Without thinking, well, who am I to help him, right? And he did have a request for me. And I would gladly fulfill the request because that's my way of giving back. So it's a two-way street.
And I noticed it doesn't even necessarily have to be also on the realm of professional. I know I connected two people because I thought that one could give the other professional advice that would be valuable. And what they got back into return is the one just happened to mention, oh, hey, I'm going on, yeah, I'm really excited. I keep looking forward to my holiday in Japan. And the one they were giving advice to, professional advice, said, oh, I know a lot about Japan. I go every
There
year.
you go.
Would you like some tips? Would you like some information? And so then they were able to provide, like, these are all my favorite restaurants. These are all the top places to go. These I recommend. They're off the beaten path, so you won't have so many tourists. It's more authentic. So it could be something within your knowledge that is not professional, but is maybe more personal or hobby related that's valuable to the other person.
And I've heard stories when someone came for sort of professional recommendation, asked how can I help, the other person said, I'm not sure, but my son is looking for a 1 week work experience. Does your company do this? And yes.
Mm.
And there you get the work experience. So you really never know. And that's why, as we started, it's about relationship building
Yeah.
rather than going right into your face and asking, do you have a job for me?
And
Which
it's
can work sometimes as well.
yeah, but and I think it's also about when you're genuinely interested in someone, you do want to build a relationship with them because you're curious about them and because you want to learn more about them. So I think that's why I always focus on, if someone doesn't interest you, even if even if you think they have the best advice in the world probably to give you, don't reach out to them. Just reach out to someone else.
Mm.
Um, I know that what some people have mentioned before is that, okay, we reach out, I have a great conversation. Now what? And I feel
Hmm.
like when I'm teaching people about networking and trying to explain how to do it, a lot of people like do it once, they meet with someone, they have a great conversation, but then they let it go and it stagnates.
Yes.
And you already mentioned the one part that I always tell clients, and I always start telling clients, make sure to send a thank you email, thanking them for their time, their effort they put in meeting you in person or online. That's one thing to already follow up from the meeting. But then the next thing is just like you said, you also said earlier something about it, putting it in your diary, scheduling it that you maybe reach out in half a year's time to check back in. It doesn't have to be as strict as this, that you reach out within half a year. It could just be that maybe you put something on your calendar to remind you after a few months, don't forget to check in with the different people you've been networking with. But it also can be very natural that, I don't know, you come across an article that reminds you of that person. You may think that in your head and let it go. But rather than doing that, if you see an article that you read and you think that person would be interested in it, don't even assume, oh, they've probably already seen it or read it. Just go ahead and use that as an opportunity to check in with that person. Say, hey, I read this article. I instantly thought of you. I don't know if you've had a chance to see it or read it yet, but I thought I'd send it over. By the way, how are you doing?
And
Um,
even if it's a film that you've seen, like
yeah,
I know Andrea got very excited about the comment how to talk to teenagers, but everyone is talking about adolescence at the moment. Like everyone, I haven't watched, by the way, but I have to because now everyone is watching. But
yeah.
again, if you had a conversation about adolescent children, there you go. Say, like, I've been just watching the film, exactly what we discussed last time, like half a year ago, but you activated yourself in the
In their mind.
in their mind. And also by sharing your networks, and here's the connector talking because I constantly share my network, but also what I realized today, how it works is those people remind your contacts about you.
Mm,
Same thing. So it's like a triple win, I
mm.
think. Yeah.
And I think when another thing to do is, what I like to do is typically on LinkedIn, we all easily will push a like button. What I try to do is, with my connections, make a point of congratulating people when they have something of success that they mention on LinkedIn. Maybe it's a promotion, maybe it's getting married or a new baby that they announce. I always am writing a message to them saying, hey, that's great, congratulations, it's been a while since we touched base. I'm so happy to hear this new exciting thing happened in your life. And again, you're reactivating and reminding them kind of your existence. And it's a relationship, because if you think about it, it's the same you would do with a friend. If your friend posted on social media about something that they were excited about, you would do
Yeah.
the exact same thing.
Yeah. Well, Susan, it looks like we're right at the time that we promised. I'm just curious to see, are there any
Questions?
questions?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we're happy to stay on and to take questions. And I get, but the main message I guess we wanted to share is yes, building networks is a is is another job, but it shouldn't be a chore.
Yeah.
It can be enjoyable and it should be built on relationships rather than transactional asks. Yeah.
And I think that's what I see. That's what I love to see. I know you do the same with your clients, Olga, is that teaching people to network, you can do it in a way that speaks to you. So if you're not one to enjoy conferences, you don't have to do it that way.
Yeah.
You don't have to go to an in-person event. You can do it online. If you want to go out and meet people, but maybe in a smaller format, maybe you go to a small industry event to meet people. So don't feel like you have to do it one way because everyone talks about this one specific way of networking.
Yeah.
You
And,
do,
and
yeah,
you do you. Exactly.
exactly. You do you. You do what feels most comfortable and what feels more authentic to you. And it
Mhm,
just, I think at the end of the day, it goes back to genuine curiosity when you network.
mhm. And even if you are one of the most extreme introverts, there's a networking style for you as well. You just ask. Uh, People think that extroverts are non-people people. No, they're people who are more comfortable in small groups or one-on-one.
Yeah.
So use that to your advantage and ask someone to introduce you to someone, have an online conversation so you don't need to be right into the face of the person. It is still considered to be networking. You're still building relationships.
Mm, yeah, absolutely.
Right. I don't see questions coming in, so shall we then
Any
wrap
parting
up?
words, Olga? What, I guess, if no one else, like, what would you want people to take away from today?
Networking is important. It's important to work on it even before you feel you need it. And networking shouldn't be a chore, and you can all find your own way to network. There's no right or wrong way, as long as there's a way.
Mm,
What's your summary?
yeah. I would say go ahead and start practicing. You can have even two opportunities. You're welcome to reach out and connect with Olga and I. I'm speaking for Olga because I know she would be okay with this as well. So you can already go ahead and reach out to us as a start if you're not already connected with us. And yeah, like we said, people that are in the chat are probably going to be open as well to networking. So feel free to look to see if there's anyone interesting there. And I think, again, it's a muscle that you can build up. So baby steps
Yeah.
and
Practice in a safe environment. This group, start with this group. Yep.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I wish you all happy networking times.
Yes, me too. And hope to see you in one of our next sessions and let us know what you would like us to talk about next
Yeah,
time.
yeah, for sure. Great. Thank you everyone for joining us. And
Thank you.
yeah, we're here every month. So we'll see you next month.